Welcome back to Punk Rock Theologian. We've made it to commandment number 4. I'll give you the short version first from the old Bible school song. That was number 4, the Sabbaths for our worship and for rest. This command is about resting on the Sabbath, which begs the question, what is Sabbath? Before we get into that, let's look at the actual text. This is the first time that there's really a big difference between Exodus and Deuteronomy. A lot of those differences are just that Deuteronomy kind of expanded on it, so I'm going to give you that version and just point out those differences as we go. So in Deuteronomy chapter 5, starting at verse 12, we get, "Observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy, as the Lord your God has commanded you." Already have to stop and point out that Exodus said, "Remember to observe the Sabbath day." The bigger difference is that Exodus did not say, "as the Lord your God has commanded you." So basically Deuteronomy, instead of using the word remember, just reminds us that this was God's command. This one is just as important as the rest. But now we can move on. You have 6 days each week for your ordinary work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath day of rest dedicated to the Lord your God. On that day, no one in your household may do any work. This includes you, your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, your oxen and donkeys and other livestock, and any foreigners living among you. Brief side note, Exodus didn't mention oxen and donkeys, it just says livestock. Continuing that more detailed theme, Deuteronomy goes on to emphasize all your male and female servants must rest as you do. Exodus didn't include that reiteration. But from here on out, they don't even match up. We'll finish out Deuteronomy. It says, "Remember that you were once slaves in Egypt, but the Lord your God brought you out with his strong hand and powerful arm. That is why the Lord your God has commanded you to rest on the Sabbath day." Curiously, Exodus gave a completely different reason for the Sabbath. It says, "For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and everything in them. But on the 7th day he rested. That is why the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and set it apart as holy." Now it would be easy to point at this and call it a contradiction because they're saying slightly different things. Exodus is saying it came because of the 6 days of creation and then God rested on the 7th. And Deuteronomy is saying it's because you used to be slaves and you're not now. I feel like the obvious answer is they're both correct. They're both true. That whole resting on the 7th day of creation, that's where this idea originally came from. That is the source of the Sabbath day. It even says back in Genesis 2:3, God blessed the 7th day and made it holy, because it was the day when he rested from all his work of creation. So that is where this all started, and Exodus is pointing to that. Deuteronomy just brought in a different reminder. You used to be slaves, where obviously resting was not an option. They worked 7 days a week. And it's saying God brought you out of there. God actually redeemed you from slavery. And so for you to continue working on that 7th day is kind of offensive because it's acting like you're still slaves. And that's why we have Deuteronomy reminding them that used to be your life, but it's not anymore. And it actually ends with saying that God commanded them to rest, which feels a lot to me like kids being told to take a nap and fighting it and don't want to take a nap, but you get to be at my age and it's like if someone gave me the opportunity to take a nap, you don't have to tell me twice. My favorite understanding of Sabbath is just that it's a time to change the pace. It's taking 1 day a week that you're not pushing and striving and trying to keep the ball moving forward. Whatever that looks like in normal day-to-day life for you, it's take 1 day of not doing that. We generally focus on this as a command to rest when God says to rest, but it's also a command to work when he says to work. Exodus and Deuteronomy both started out by saying you have 6 days of the week to work. And I think the primary principle of this whole command is that God is the one in charge of time. He's the one controlling and coordinating all of it. And it's our job to follow his leading in that. And that's why my declaration for this commandment is I work on God's time, not my own. I wait for God to open the right doors and boldly take action when he does. Because it's both sides of that coin. We have to wait for God to make the move, but we need to be ready so we can take action when he does. Once again, this isn't just in the commandments. That's why Luke 12:35 says, "Be dressed and ready for action, keep your lamps burning." That is specifically a metaphor for be ready, because when he says it's time to go, you got to be ready to go. It's also why you get things like Psalm 39:4, saying, "Lord, remind me how brief my time on earth will be. Remind me that my days are numbered, how fleeting my life is." There's only so much time for each one of us. Yeah, we all get the same 24 hours in a day and 7 days in a week, but none of us know how many of those days we actually get. God is the one in control. He needs to be the one who gets to set the rhythm of our lives. Jesus himself said in John 9:4-5, "We must quickly carry out the tasks assigned to us by the one who sent us. The night is coming when no one can work. But while I am here in the world, I am the light of the world." Again, he's pointing out there's an opportunity. There's a window right now. We need to be active in this window. And remember, it's not always about just working all the time. We're not supposed to constantly keep pushing. We need to know when to work and we need to know when to rest. And most importantly, we need to let God make that decision. That's why Ephesians 5:15-16 says, "So be careful how you live. Don't live like fools, but like those who are wise. Make the most of every opportunity in these evil days. The biggest thing is don't get all bent out of shape over exactly what Sabbath has to look like. That's the conflict Jesus had with the Pharisees so many times. If we really want to make the most out of the limited time we have on this planet, we need to work on God's time, not our own.